If you could put some.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Balance Sheet. I'm Walt Laskos, Director of Public Relations here at Westcorp Federal Credit Union. We're coming to you live today from Overland Studios in San Dimas, part of Westcorp's operation, where we have a great show lined up for you. We have a terrific guest. But before we go there, let me just mention that if you have any kind of technical issues with the program today, the number to call is 877-293-8891. We have folks on hand there that will walk through any kind of difficulties that you do have. And secondly, during our conversation today, if there is a question that you have, since we are live, please do right below me on the screen in front of you. You'll see a link that says Ask a Question. Click on that link, type in your question. We'll see it back here in the studio, and we'll be more than happy to respond to it. The topic of our presentation today is one that I think is very timely and important, given the fact that a lot of credit unions at this point in time are getting together, doing their strategic planning for 2009. My feeling is that when you approach strategic planning, one of the fundamental areas that a conversation or discussion should begin with is what does it mean to be a credit union in today's financial services marketplace? What makes us different? What do we stand for? And to really answer a lot of those questions and help us get a handle on what we're talking about, I have a guest today that is most wonderful, and I'm pleased that he's with us. He's a long-term credit union professional, currently the president and CEO of Continental Federal Credit Union in Tempe, Arizona. He has had his hand in full-service consulting, training, and development, providing services to individual credit unions, trade associations, and regulatory agencies nationwide. For more than 16 years, he served as the president of a national consulting firm, working day-to-day with credit unions of all shapes and sizes. He was also the EVP, Chief Operating Officer, for a $2 billion credit union in the Northwest. He is a recognized expert in corporate strategic planning, operational analyses and improvement, consumer and real estate lending, and leadership and management development. Tom Glatt, welcome to Beyond the Balance Sheet.
Thanks, Walt.
So happy that you're with us. Let's begin by first talking about your background and how you got started with credit unions.
Oh, Walt, I think I'm like everybody else out there in credit unions. I fell to the ground from the womb wanting to go to work at a credit union. You know that's a lie. Anyway, actually I was in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and I had been there with Arthur Young and Company doing the audit of Phillips Petroleum Company for several years. Wanted to stay there, so I went to work for a trucking company. Now, what they failed to tell me in the interview for the trucking company was that they were entering into a Chapter 11. And so after 2 years of spending most of my time in court, I actually got a call from 66 Federal Credit Union. One of the nice things about a small town is that everybody knows everybody's business, and one of the bad things about a small town is everybody knows everybody's business. But the CFO at 66 Federal Credit Union had been dismissed by the NCUA and one of their examinations, and so the credit union called me and said, "We know you're over here. We know you're an accountant. We need a CFO. Would you like to come to work for us?" And so I jumped on it, and that was back in the early 80s, and I've been a credit union employee ever since. Now, I joined my first credit union back in 1974 when I was in the Army, so I knew what a credit union was. But, you know, I tried to fool myself into saying that, well, you know, when I was with Arthur Young, I did audits of banks, and a bank and a credit union are the same thing. You get on the other side and you find out, no, they're not. But that's how I got involved in credit unions.
And from there, then you moved into operating your own company, consulting firm at the time. I mean, what are some of the values and the lessons that you were able to reap from that experience working with credit unions?
Oh, Walter, that's where you find out, especially in a family-owned business, all about core values. The reason you see so many such and such and son or such and daughters or whatever it is because the parents know the values of the people they're hiring. And I think that experience of running our own business and knowing that we could trust our employees because we knew they shared our values, that's the same thing that comes into play in running a credit union. It starts with, and the planning process doesn't start with a SWOT analysis. a good planning session starts with an understanding and a general agreement and a buy-in to the core values. The core values are the very set of here's who we are. That's the definition. You aren't defined by your vision statement or your mission statement. You're defined by your core values. And so if you hire core values, train skills, you'll be much better off. And that's the way it was with a family-owned business, was that we knew the values of the employees. We could teach them about credit unions, but we couldn't teach them how to care about people. And so I'm glad to say that all of our children are involved in people helping people. Now, it may not be in the credit union world. Tom Jr. certainly
Right.
is, but Diane and I have 2 daughters. One works for an Alzheimer's residence center, and she's the chief administrator, and the other one works for a hospice. And so it's still people helping people, but that's those core values. And so as you start in your planning, I really think that you have to have an entrepreneurial approach to running a credit union, whether it's the people at the top, running a branch, or whatever. You're not working for someone else. You're working for yourself.
And you know, it's interesting that you say that, because when you look at in the cooperative movement itself in general, for all cooperatives, there are a set of principles that govern the way cooperatives operate. You know, and some of the key elements there about education, you know, the principle of returning, giving back to the community and supporting the community to develop, because in doing that, you help create a better fertile ground for the operations of your own cooperative. So it's so true, like you say, about people helping people, taking that to the step where we're really giving back, because that influences the success and the vitality of the actual credit union itself.
Walter, and that's an excellent point, because so many people or so many credit unions, when you talk about community involvement, they go, well, we don't have a community charter. You don't have to have a community charter in order to be a good community citizen. The involvement in the community really isn't credit union involvement, it's the people that work at the credit union being involved. There's a difference in writing out a check and having people go give their time. And so, you know, when we have credit union people out working in the community, that says a whole lot more about us than the size of the check that we write out. And so it's not dependent on a community charter. It's dependent upon, once again, the core values, people helping people, of the people that are hired and work at the credit union.
You know, we look at, as I was saying earlier, all the folks that are watching, a lot of their credit unions, associations are in the process of doing strategic planning for 2009. That being said, when you look at the philosophy of credit unions, what are some of the key ingredients, in your opinion, that a lot of these senior staff, a lot of the directors should really be focused on as they pursue the process of strategic planning for next year?
Well, and that's also an excellent question, because I think for a lot of credit unions, the social side of the planning process has overtaken the planning side of the planning process. And I get calls sometimes and people say, what can we do to ensure that our planning process is successful this year? And I say, if you will commit half the time that you spend before the conference, if you'll commit half the time planning the planning part as you do planning the social part, you'll be in good shape. Because we spend an inordinate amount of time planning who's going to play golf, who's going to sit by who at dinner, what we're going to do for the spouses, hours and hours and hours. And yet if you look at, okay, what did you do to plan the planning part? Maybe we fill out a questionnaire and it took 15 minutes or something like that. But this year, more than any others, I often start out conferences by saying, look, at no time ever have credit unions ever had more opportunity for growth than we have right now.
You are right.
We've never had more opportunity for influence than we have right now. We've never had more opportunity for success than we have right now, and we've never had more opportunity for failure than we have right now.
That's true. That's true. There really is, when you come down to it, then a lot at stake how credit unions should be putting together their goals and objectives, business goals for next year.
Yes, sir. And you know, for me, it follows. There is a process to it, and it's like the whole plan should be built on core values. Then we should talk about our vision. And you notice I said vision, Walter. There's a lot of credit unions out there that I really truly feel have a vision statement, but they have no vision. Vision statement is worthless without a vision behind it. It becomes a tagline or something we can stick up on a billboard or on a marketing piece. I don't care about that. What I care about is do the people, does everybody in the organization, from top to the bottom, the janitor ought to know what the vision of the credit union is. Not the vision statement. I don't want people to stand up and put their hand over their heart and be able to recite, because I own 3 African gray parrots, and every one of them could recite a vision statement. Wouldn't know what it meant, but they could say it.
Right.
And we have that with employees. We care more about whether they can say it. It's whether they live it, whether they understand it, whether they share it. And so that core value is followed by a shared vision, where we want to go in the long term, followed by mission, how are we going to get there? And for me, vision is more external, mission is more internal. But we've got to get our hands around that. And, you know, with the vision piece, it's difficult to talk about. And boards shy away from vision. Even management shies away from vision, because the minute you start talking about where do we want to go, somebody's going to ask the question, especially if somebody comes up with a really good visionary idea. Immediately somebody goes, excuse me, how are we going to do that? And now all of a sudden we've taken a long-term, visionary, big-picture discussion and we've turned it into a tactical discussion.
Where it comes down to what's it going to cost? And you don't even have any identified yet. But you're right. But, you know, because I'm hearing a lot of play in what you're saying involves passion. And it's not just parroting words, as you say, but what is behind that? You know, do the employees, the staff of the credit union really embody what that vision's about? You know, as opposed to, oh yeah, I could recite it, I know what our vision is. There's a lot more to it. And I remember when I worked for the Ritz-Carlton, and I was involved in the J.D. Powers Service Quality Award. There's the hotel second one. And so much of that, I mean, they taught us over and over and over again the aspects of being passionate about your work. So they get employees from top to bottom are fired up, believing in the value and having ownership for the company, that really transformed them into a second Malcolm Baldrige winner. And I'm hearing the same thing of what you're proposing, that there's more than just the words and, you know, the stuff that we put on the outside or even external facing. We also have to be very conscientious about our messaging and our involvement of staff, and bringing the staff into that whole body that becomes passionate about what we stand for as a credit union.
Walt, I love it, because one of the things we do in the interview process at Continental is we ask people in the interview process, what do you love more than anything in the world? And when they tell us, we say, well, now why? And we watch them. And if it's, well, because, you know, we're not going to hire them, no matter how good they are mechanically, no matter how good they are technically, because if you look at our list of core values, the one on the top is passion. And you know that I'm pretty passionate about credit unions. So that's where we start. And so if you're talking to me about the thing you love most in the world, you just told me, I love this more than anything else in the world, and you have no passion behind that, you're not going to come to work for us, because we want every member, whether they come in, phone in, or log in, or they work at the credit union, we want every member experience for somebody to go, wow, because the person waiting on me acted like they could not wait to give me the service. And that's what it's got to be. So if you're not passionate about it, and if you can't be passionate about people helping people, then I don't know what you can be passionate about, except maybe pizza.
But, you know, it reminds me, too, of maybe the distinction when you talk banks and you talk credit unions. I remember when I worked, I have that awful, well, I shouldn't say that, but that part of me in the past where I was employed by a bank. And a focus there was what differentiates one bank from the other? You know, you look at, well, we offer the same products, services. And I remember when we were there, the focus was toward the end that it really comes down to how do we deliver service to our customers? What kind of quality service are we giving? And it brings down the fact of passion and quality as really being able to distinguish your organization or a credit union from, you know, from the competition. It seems that is a very good role to play. And beyond that, I mean, is there other aspects beyond the service quality, beyond the principles of cooperatives that distinguish credit unions, banks? Because I know there's a lot of that going on today, the tension between both.
Well, you know, and that's, in some ways, that's a shame, because as much as we take shots at banks, and I understand that many people consider them to be the enemy, let's face it, if it weren't for banks, there'd be very little research and development going on in credit unions, because we don't put money to that. We let banks put money to that, and then we take their idea and we put a credit union twist on it. And so I think from our standpoint, one of the things we need to do, we started out ahead of the technology game, but I think we've let banks pass us because we quit putting money to that. Now, the other thing I think that banks do extremely well is they market the idea of service. They don't deliver it, but they market it extremely well. And so you look at an ad today for Washington Mutual, or you look at an ad for Bank of America, it's not filled with pricing or location. It's filled with, you're going to come in and, boy, you're going to leave us feeling so good. That's a service ad. And what do? We say we've got the best prices in town, and so we've got to take a step back and go, okay, how do we not only talk about service, but the problem, and you and I were talking about this before we went on air, is if you go out to the public and you tell people we give better service than anybody, somebody's going to make you back that up.
That's right.
And so we have to be prepared. So now let's go back to the core values and passion again. We better have people out there that say, we do give better service, and when you come in here, we're going to prove it to you. But I never also, on the initial question about differences, in the past when I did, and I've done some strategic planning for some banks out there, and every one of them, without fail, without exception, the mission statement for every one of them was exactly the same: to maximize stockholder wealth. Every one of them. Now, there's not a service piece in there. There's not what it is, maximize stockholder wealth, which says the bottom line. And keep going back, for me, that is the primary difference, is that when I show up every day, now we have to make money at what we do. I'm a certified public accountant, and I can tell you if you take the not-for-profit seriously, the guys with the initials behind their names, like NCUA and everybody else, comes in and says, okay, what's going on here? We have to make money at what we do.
Correct.
But it's how we turn around and invest that money then. The money, if I charge a fee to a customer of a bank, the beneficiary of that fee is not going to be the customer. The beneficiary is going to be a stockholder. I pay that same fee to a credit union, and I, as a member, am the beneficiary of that same fee I paid in there. So I think that's a huge difference. But I like your point on service. We have to go back. If we're going to differentiate ourselves on service, we have to be prepared to back that up, and that starts with the message, and we do not send a service message.
That's a whole other world that I know that we should probably look at, is how do we communicate these values, the principles, the good things that credit unions are doing, or that your credit union might be doing, to the public at large, to keep them in the know, to keep them educated about the credit union difference and what we're about. It seems that we don't do a good job doing that.
I think it goes beyond we don't do a good job. I think we do a poor job, in my mind. And one of the reasons is it goes back to the initial thing. One of the things that made credit unions so strong and so successful, and why we got where we was the whole idea of cooperation amongst, not only are we a cooperative with our members, but as a group, as a filial group, we are cooperative.
That's right, among the financials. And then the financials are a cooperative among other cooperatives.
You bet. But for me to go out and say, okay, let me get 10 credit unions in the area and let's do some kind of cooperative advertisement. Let's go tell our story. Somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute, I'm a small credit union. And the big guys are going to be the ones that do all the benefit. And the big guys are going to say, well, why should I put money in to help that small credit union? I don't need them. And so the cooperation falls apart.
Yeah.
The bankers, what they have done a good job of is bifurcating our industry, bifurcating our movement into the large and the small. We talk about it all the time. We used to just talk about credit unions.
Yeah.
Now we talk about large credit unions and small credit unions and this nebulous group in the middle. Kind of interesting, but during the Wings thing, and I promise you that's the only time I'm bringing that up, but during the Wings thing, one of the things that they wrote about us, Wings wrote about us, was as a small credit union. Well, we were about 180 million at the time, and I would think, wow, when did 180 million become a small credit union? And so, but as a $1.8 billion credit union, yeah, to them, we're small. But we've got to tell our story, and I think we do that, starts with, again, with cooperation. Whether we, as you say, Westcor as a credit union for credit unions, whether it comes out of something like you guys, or whatever, but we've got to get that story out there. We have a tremendous story to tell. But 90% of our story today is in reaction to something that bankers said about us.
That's right. We are not proactive at all in doing what we're doing. And I know that comes down to even the work that we do within the community. Why should we be faced with having a regulation imposed on us that we need to report on the service that we're giving back to the community when it's by our very nature to be involved in the community and to help raise up the community to the higher financial standards?
I know you're talking about Community Reinvestment Act now.
Yeah.
You're talking about CRA, and by very definition, well, we're in compliance with Community Reinvestment Act, which basically came about because you had banks taking in deposits from the inner city, say of Los Angeles, and then loaning that on a strip mall in Fort Lauderdale. And when the local minority business owner came in and said, I'd like to borrow some money, they went, you know what, we don't have any, because they had loaned it all out somewhere else. And so it was a way to force banks to say, if you're going to take money from the inner city, you're going to lend in the inner city. And I know even today a lot of bankers get around that merely by buying loans. They don't actually have a branch in the inner city. They don't do that. Now, go look where our branches are. Our branches are where our members are.
That's right.
And by very definition, we can only lend to those people from whom we borrow. So we're already in compliance. We've always been in compliance with Community Reinvestment Act. But it would be onerously expensive to go through the proving process that we do that, filling out the paperwork. If I'm a one-person shop or a five-person shop, who's going to do all that compliance work for me? I'm either going to have to spend money on the outside or I'm going to have to spend time on the inside, and either way, it's going to be very painful.
Yeah. And it really is a bind when you're a few-person shop, because the whole focus is the members. But if you're deluged with paperwork and reports, and when do you take care of the members?
Well, sure, and then you ask yourself, well, now who am I running the credit union for? Am I running it for the benefit of the members, or am I running it for the benefit of the United States government, or am I running it for the benefit of a regulator? Who am I running this credit union for?
That brings us now to a point of looking forward. Keys to success for credit unions. Again, 2009 strategic planning. What are some of the areas of focus that leadership and boards should be looking at as they go about their planning?
There's several, and one of them, you talked about focus as we focus on growth. And I think there's a lot of credit unions out there that almost say that as a given. But one of the exercises that I wish that people would do in their planning process is to truly ask the question, do we need to grow? Now, I happen to believe that the answer is yes. But I think you have a lot of, especially board members out there, perhaps volunteers that say, actually, I don't know that we do need to grow. We're doing fine as a $60 million credit union, and we've been in business for a long time, and we've hovered around that size. But I think they really need to get their hands around the growth question. Do we need to grow? And then, if the answer is yes, now they need to step back. Then how are we going to do that? Are we going to get more business from people who are already here? Are we going to get new people in? And I get seriously concerned when I see the average credit union member's age creep up and up and up and up. And there's a point at which, if you have an average age of 50, you now have a credit union, the average credit union member has passed out of the need for our basic products, which are lending products or loan products. So if I'm 50, that's when I start talking about doing away with debt and accumulating wealth and savings. Well, we make money off of loans. And that's one of the things that concerns me too, is how much of the cooperated philosophical questions have gone away, or philosophical feelings. What I mean by that is we became, in some ways, with some people, investment clubs. I know when I took over Continental, we were about 31, 32% loaned out. That meant that we were investing 68 or 69 or 70% of all of the funds that came in. We had a two-tier, as I'm fond of saying, we had a two-tier risk-based lending system, A+ and no. Well, that's not serving the member. Not only that, but I can make more money off of my lowest yielding loan than I can make off of my highest yielding investment. To get back to the planning question, don't get caught up in tactical discussions. The how are we going to do stuff, that's a management issue anyway. The board, with input from management, should spend its strategic time on what do we want to accomplish, where do we want to go in the long term. And so it's the what question. The how are we going to get there? That's a management issue. It's a tactical issue.
And I think it gets back also to that vision statement. As
Absolutely.
Saying, what is our vision statement, and is it just words, or do we have a vision to back up that vision statement? Yeah.
Well, yes, because so many vision statements I see, they all look the same. We want to be our members' primary financial institution. First of all, that's a lie. And as I tell people, there's some members that you would pay them bus fare to go across town and do business with somebody else. So don't tell me you want to be their primary financial institution. It's not about that. What is your credit union really about? What's going to sustain you for the long term? I want my grandchildren to grow up to be credit union people. I do want my grandchildren's children to drop to the ground and say, yeah, I want to go to work for a credit union. Like my granddad did, or like my father did, or whatever.
Say I come from a long line of credit union people.
Credit union people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And when you talk about that as well, another area that I feel is something that could be brought to the picture to remind us all that we are part of a larger cooperative venture, where not only there are financial cooperatives, but there are other cooperatives, and I think there's value there that we can be able to bring to members if on a larger area we start to look at that and explore avenues of networking more beyond just the financial cooperatives.
Absolutely. If you go up, say, North Dakota, and I've worked with some credit unions up there before, the farm cooperatives up there are huge issues. And so, yeah, if you can marry the credit cooperation with the farm cooperation, you've got a really strong thing going up there. Right. And so there are a lot of opportunities out there for us to say, okay, healthcare is another huge area that's built on the cooperative system.
Absolutely. And then when you take it a step further and you start looking at, we talk about how credit unions can get out the vote. Now, all of a sudden, you take it to the next layer where as credit unions and other cooperatives all together, we get out the vote. I mean, you talk really a powerful force that
yes, you
really could influence the direction of regulations.
And had we been on a cooperative basis, look at when Congressman Thomas held his Ways and Means Committee meeting. It was about not-for-profits, but it was really about cooperatives. It was about health care. It was about us. It was about a number of cooperatives. And that's where, if we had gone in there collectively and said, hey, we provide something America needs at a cost that America can afford, instead of, again, breaking into our individual parts and trying to go in there and protect our part, there's a huge cooperative business in the United States that goes well beyond credit unions.
Correct. We have probably about 2-3 minutes left. Time flew by.
Yes, it did. Yes, it
but
did.
I guess what I'd like to, if we kind of look to sum up a little bit, as a man that is very passionate about credit unions, about the philosophy, about the ideals, what we stand for, some parting comments, direction, feelings that you would like to leave everyone who was here today?
Sure. One thing I'd like to say is that there's no such thing as a small credit union. I always like to tell people that down in Louisiana they taught us that the word only and million never went in the same sentence together. So, whether you're a $5 million credit union, you're not only a $5 million credit union, you're a $5 million credit union. And there are people behind that $5 million who are counting on you, and if you've got everything they have, you're the biggest financial institution they deal with. So what I'm trying to say is that we have something worth protecting. And we do provide an alternative, a choice. And when we let somebody else do away with that choice, we don't hurt credit unions, we hurt an American citizen out there. We hurt somebody out there who is looking for, not even an American citizen, there's a credit union member because we have a worldwide movement. Whenever we take away that choice for the world, for global consumers, we hurt those consumers. And so we have something worth protecting. And I would say to everybody, if you're passionate about credit unions, then become politically active, become active in the corporates, become active however you can to protect what we have, because it's worth protecting. And it's not about protecting my job or your job. Walt, we go get a job tomorrow somewhere else. It's about protecting this way of doing business that we've established for 100 years that helps our members. Their
words cannot respond to that. That's wonderful. we need to leave the viewers with that thought and that comment. Tom, thank you for gracing
Oh,
us
thank you
today.
so much.
I really appreciate it. We have our email addresses on the screen for Tom Glatt at continentalfcu.org, and for myself as well. Next month, our focus of topic for conversation will be tapping the power of your brand. So that may be a nice follow-up to this month's conversation. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Tom, for being with us here on Beyond the Balance Sheet. Look forward to having you again with us next month. Have a good month.